elevated me from a copywriter to a rainmaker, if you will. So now I'm driven again, kind of like I was in my 20s, but in my 20s, it was more desperation. But the other piece too is stacking skills. See, I think one mistake a lot of people make is they just learn one skill. Yeah, so today I have 5 companies and I think I'm about to start 3 more.
Okay.
So I'll just quickly go over them. So I've got a publishing company in the music space. We've been around for over 12 years. A supplement company that's been around for over 11 years. It's called Bioptimizers. We help people fix digestion and optimize their bodies. Business partners with Dawson Church. We have what's called the Energy Psychology Certification. Then I have a tech startup that isn't making money. It's costing me money, but we've been building a really cool platform for 3 years. And I think we'll be launching later this year. Mm-hmm. And then I have pay for performance optimization deals, which has really taken off for me. So we can get deeper into the whole pay for performance thing later. So that's what's going on right now. Yeah, so I live in Panama. I'm Canadian, but about 13 years ago, I decided I wanted to live abroad, and Panama kind of had all the check boxes ticked.
And how old are you today?
I am 40. I just turned 40.
Okay, congrats. Any big celebration?
I went to Nicaragua, San Juan del Sur. It's one of my favorite towns, and just hung out with some of my best friends.
So you're married or single, or what's the personal life?
Yeah, happily married.
Okay.
Been married. We just celebrated 6 years.
You said you were from Canada originally?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And where in Canada? And then kind of what school did you go to, and kind of how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I'm from New Brunswick. That's on the East Coast. When you tell a Canadian from the East Coast, they think Toronto, Montreal. No, it's way more east than that. It's really like my parents live 10 minutes from the Atlantic Ocean. So I went to the University of Moncton, studied kinesiology and the science of physical activity. So my first career was as a personal trainer. And I always knew I wanted to build a business around health and fitness. I was always really passionate about it. So I graduated, and actually throughout university, I was already training people. And I was charging people, I was charging, I think, $15-20 an hour. So then I graduated and I had a full-time job at the gym, 40 hours a week. Plus I was doing another 30-40 hours of personal training before and after my shifts. And at the time I was charging $25 an hour. Saved up some money. I was working literally like 80-90 hours a week. Plus I was learning copywriting. Plus I was recording an album. Plus I was training twice a day. So literally the only way I could pull that off was to sleep 5 hours a night. And I don't recommend that, but that was where I was at the time. I was just hungry for success, man.
Mm-hmm.
I was really driven. Then I moved to Vancouver, and I really put my marketing skills to use because I had been studying copy. And I became the busiest, or the second busiest trainer in World's Gym downtown Vancouver, which was a pretty big accomplishment. And I did it quickly too. And I did it not because I had a great physique or I had accomplishments. I did it because of my marketing and sales skills, which I had learned before. So there's some other entrepreneurial stories also when I was in New Brunswick. One, I was a College Pro Painters franchisee for 2 years. That was one of the most difficult, intense things I've ever done, even to this date. It was just trial by fire, knocking on doors in February. It was minus 20 and asking people if they wanted a free estimate. And I wouldn't say a natural salesman. Like I was 0 for 10 out of my first 10 estimates. But then I started learning, and I won the most improved manager of the year, the first year and the second year. So by the second year, I was closing 50% of my estimates, which is pretty good.
Right. Was that from like studying the copywriting, or was this before you're studying copywriting? I didn't know if it plays hand in hand.
This was before.
Okay.
Yeah, I was around, I think I was 20 and 21 when I did that. And they have a phenomenal training program. Like College Pro Painters is owned by a company that specializes in franchises. So they have actually a suite of different franchises, and College Pro Painters is just one of them. So their training process and how they run the company is world class. So I learned a lot there. Then the other thing I did that was entrepreneurial is I started organizing self-defense fighting seminars in Moncton, New Brunswick, because I was really passionate about it. And I couldn't afford to fly to Tulsa, Oklahoma and train with Christoph Clarkson, which was the guy that I wanted to train with. So what I did, I said, hey, man, can I bring you down? He said, sure. Here's my fees. So it was cheaper for me to organize an event and sell it. So I kind of learned how to hustle and grind because it was just like selling one-on-one. And I did like 35 events over 7 years. So that was another entrepreneurial experience. Then I moved to Vancouver. I've always been the kind of guy that did multiple things. So it sounds a little confusing. I was a trainer. I was organizing seminars. Like I was doing kind of all those things simultaneously. And then when I moved to Vancouver, built a personal training business. And then I launched my first real online success about 2 years after landing in Vancouver. And it was a skincare formulation, an anti-aging skincare formulation. And right out of the gate, pulled 5 figures the first month. And I remember the first sale and the first day, it was profitable. So I couldn't sleep for a couple of days. I was just so jacked. And then I just grew that. And at the time, it was a lot easier than it is now to build online machines and online businesses. So from there, I partnered up with my business partner, Claude, with Guitar Control. We launched that. So that's the business that's 12 years old and still rocking and rolling today. So yes, we launched that. Then I partnered up with another friend of mine who was a natural bodybuilding champion. That's the supplement business. It evolved and transitioned a couple times, but that's Bioptimizers today. So that started also in Vancouver. That was that phase. Then I moved to Panama and I had a solid 5-year party run. Okay. And that's putting it in a positive light, but I was a little out of control. Because I got divorced at 28 and then just went right off the rails with drugs, alcohol, and women. So including my first 4 years down here, Panama lends itself well to that.
Right.
So there was not a lot of business at that time. If anything, like businesses were but due to the automation, I was able to continue making money despite not really caring about it. Bodybuilding business, the guitar business, and I had a couple of other things at that time that petered out over time. But yeah, so just kept making money and I really didn't barely worked for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And then I sobered up about 8 years ago and just started just building things again. So, I partnered up with Dawson Church. That was a couple years ago. The pay for performance optimization deals is something that I've done in the past, but I'm really putting a lot more energy into it and the word's out because split testing has always been my favorite thing to do. And I've just built a treasure chest of data and insights and things that work. So I can usually increase people's conversions on their funnels, 30, 50, 100%. Sometimes I've done as much as 20x, 2000%, but that's a special case. Fortunately or unfortunately, I have a lot of passions. It's very easy for me to become passionate about things. So I was always passionate about health. I've been playing guitar since I'm 12. I had a band, recorded an album, so I did all of that. And, even with Dawson, with energy psychology, I'm really passionate about that entire field. So I never do things that I'm not excited about. That's just one of my rules. I say no to a lot of things that could make me money or could make me a lot of money just because if I'm not enjoying it that was always my rule. I've always just chosen to do things that I'm excited about. Mm-hmm. So, but being a guy that's got a lot of passions and just the way my brain works, I tend to do a lot of things and I need to do a lot of things to keep my brain stimulated.
Right. Well, yeah, I think it was good to touch again on that. You're saying before you moved to Panama that you ended up getting divorced. How long were you married before that?
I got married young. When I was a personal trainer at the gym, I met this beautiful Swiss lady and we got married at 24. And then we moved to Vancouver and we just grew apart. We, the exoticness faded and the reality of the cultural differences were apparent at that point. Yeah, so we just parted ways when I was 28.
Gotcha. I didn't know if that played anything from the entrepreneurship role. People don't talk about a lot of the things that you have to give up, whether it's time with your friends or hanging out with them or loved ones. And so did that lend anything into it, or was it just purely what you were saying and not because you're so focused on running 3 different businesses or 4 different businesses, it sounded like at the time?
Yeah, no, I've always been blessed to even my current wife and Christine, the first one, they've always been extremely supportive of the entrepreneurial drive and taking care of the household, if you will. So yeah, I never got any grief there. It was just other problems.
Were you working around, you're saying 80 hours at that time too during your marriage then?
No, that stopped when I moved to Vancouver. Okay. That was in Moncton. I was just desperate to leave Moncton. I was like, hey man, I got to get out of here. The small-mindedness was crushing me because I just wanted to be in a national or global vibe. And that's one of the main reasons I live in Panama. I love being in the world. I want to try to escape boxes. that's a big mindset shift for me. So if I could go on another planet and hang out there for a while, I probably would, but maybe Elon Musk will pull it off in Mars.
Right. Did you know anyone when you moved down there or what?
I moved with one of my business partners at the time, and he stayed for 8 months, and then he left because, his girlfriend came a few months later and she couldn't handle it. So they went back and I stayed. Oh yeah, I made some friends along the way, obviously. So yeah, it wasn't an issue, but I had never visited the country. I just literally just put my stuff on a ship, bought a plane ticket, a one-way, and came.
And then you're partying for a few years. I guess it wasn't necessarily because of burnout. You just wanted to get mind off things, or
why I was partying so hard?
Yeah,
because I've got a propensity for addiction.
Right.
That's why it's like my brain's just hardwired for it. Looking back as a kid, I was addicted to sugar, TV, video games, you name it. I would just go all in. So I got to be very careful what I get into because I'm hardwired for it. Yeah. There's very little. I'm 0 to 10 kind of guy.
After you're kind of done with partying, you're still in Panama. Is that so? Are you in Panama City there, or
yeah, Panama.
Gotcha. So then you're talking about pay for performance. I mean, for someone who doesn't know, like me, what does even pay performance mean? And get us a general idea of what you're talking about now.
Well, you're actually probably a pay for performance guy. You just don't call it that. I mean, a sales commission is a type of pay for performance. But I'm going to rewind a little bit because I just want to talk about how I've made probably 10, 20, 50, maybe 100 times more money than the average copywriter marketer. And this is something that you want to establish as a mindset. And for everybody listening, I don't care if you're a graphic designer, a video production guy, whatever your skill sets are, this is a big mindset shift. So when I started learning copy, I did a couple of clients, but I'm like, man, this is a lot of work. So then I learned the pay-per-click side. So Google AdWords, and the combination of being able to write a sales letter and to be able to drive traffic to it, it elevated me from a copywriter to a rainmaker, if you will, right? I'm able to generate money. So my mindset was always partnerships. With the guitar guy, with Claude, he was one of my students, and I saw he had the drive to become an entrepreneur. And actually, he was hiring me to teach him marketing at the time. And I just said, let's partner up. So instead of saying, hey, hire me to do a sales letter and you pay me 10, 20 grand, 25 grand, like some copywriters charge, my mindset was, well, let's partner up. I'll get 50% of the business and I'll help you build this thing. And obviously I made, multiples and multiples more than I would have had I charged a one-time fee. So that's mindset number one, is try to get equity. Now, and we could talk about making deals because I've made a lot of deals and I understand the nuances. So we can get into that rabbit hole. But the other piece too is stacking skills. See, I think one mistake a lot of people make is they just learn one skill. So let's say you're a video guy. Okay, so you're really good at capturing video. That's cool, but there's tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of video guys, right? It's a commodity. Like if somebody says, yeah, I charge $100 an hour, I'm not going to hire them because I can hire guys for 20, 30, 40 that had just came out of college or university or whatever. And, they bought a camera and like the price of cameras have gone down. So a camera guy is a commodity. Now, if the camera guy stacks YouTube optimization skills, right? So that's another skill set. But let's say he says, yeah, I'm not just a video guy. I'm also really good at optimizing videos and getting your YouTube videos to rank. Now it's a different animal. And that opens up doors. So he can say, hey, I'll shoot your videos for free. I'll do the entire YouTube optimization. I just want 30, 40, 50% of your YouTube revenue, and you don't have to worry about a thing. See, that's how stacking skills opens up new universes of possibilities, especially if you stack a business skill, a marketing skill, like a money-making skill with a technical skill. That's the key. So, with the copywriting is a money skill. But when I had that plus the traffic generation, that's really what opened up the entire universe of being able to partner up with people. So that's a big, big secret or insight that I want everybody to use. Don't get stuck in one thing. Like keep learning skills, keep adding skills.
Do you need to scale but can't afford the overhead? Want to close more deals without hiring someone? Well, at custombotdesign.com, They can help you with these issues by, you guessed it, designing a custom bot. These bots can help with automated lead capture, appointment scheduling, and even customer support. Mention that you heard them here, and they'll throw in a free consultation and design template. Again, that's custombotdesign.com. Now back to the show.
Again, it's like, let's say you're a personal trainer, right? Let's take that example, which is a good one for me. So I was a personal trainer. I didn't stop there. I learned marketing and copy. So when I went to World's Gym, most trainers were only feeding off the scraps that the gyms were feeding them. In other words, the gym would give them, one or two clients a week. But because I had copy skills and I knew how to advertise, I was able to generate, literally 10, 20 times more clients than they did because I wasn't limited to just a personal training skill. So I think that's the big thing. Like, you can't just have a technical skill. It just doesn't cut it in today's competitive world. You're going to need to stack more things.
When you're talking about stacking skills as well, like when you're talking about you being a personal trainer and then being good at copywriting so you could get clients or how to advertise, what happens if you're in another position and you just jump to like a different industry? I guess I wouldn't perceive that as a stacking skill because you're doing two different things. Is that the way you should look at it? I should have something that adds on to what I already know?
Well, when you're changing industries, there's certainly some carryover on the soft skills, your ability to be productive in work and your mindsets, those you carry with you, right? Those are the ones that you can bring with you just about everywhere, right? So copy, sales, ability to generate traffic, the ability to build a team. Those are skills that will work in every business, right? So you can add value. Now, the technical skills, if I go from being a plumber to being a doctor, there's very little transference on the technical side. But the soft skills and the money skills, that's what transfers really well.
And were you thinking proactively back then? Or is it like you looked back and you're like, okay, this is why it looks like I've had the success that I've had? Or were you being like proactive at the time and already thinking that way?
I knew that I had a huge eureka, and I actually remember the moment. I was in my bed. I was reading a lot of business books and marketing books. And, when you're starting to learn, it's just a flurry of knowledge, right? It's like you're in a snowstorm and you don't know which snowflake is really important, right?
Right.
It's just a ton of snowflakes hitting you in the face. So, and as you move along, then you get those eureka moments. Those light bulbs go off in your head and you know what's important. So I'm lying in bed, and it was just like a download, and it was marketing is the key to generating revenue. That was it. I understood it. So that moment, that's when I became obsessed with marketing. And marketing is a big arena, right? There's copywriting and, marketing is really another level above copy, but I knew I needed to learn copy and learning how to position things, how to create good products. So that was the foundation for me. So I was 22 when I had that insight. It's like a great salesman will never starve. It's the same thing for somebody that's a good marketer. Marketers don't starve. There is a shortage of great marketers. If we go to a mastermind event or any type of event and we talk to all the entrepreneurs there, let's say an entrepreneurial event, if they could hire a great CMO, chief marketing officer, they would. And I was just at an event last week, and a lot of people have that problem. So because, most marketers are good enough. If they're good, they just build their own businesses.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can go in any industry and build a business and usually do very well because of the skill sets.
Yeah, I think that's really important to hone on because you said I used to work for a bigger real estate company, and you could have been, like I said, again, I was on the commercial side, but there's guys who just sit there who are, quote unquote sales guys waiting for the leads come in versus, actually sat down, thought about how do I make money at the end of the day? I need more potential clients. How do I get those potential clients and how do I find out where they are? And then you kind of start marketing that way. And then that's why I was able to start my own company. And so, yeah, that's a really important thing to harp on. We're transitioning when we were talking about when you moved down to Panama City, now that you got back in the arena of business after the partying thing. So what's your position now? What do you do?
The supplement business never died, and that's really revived and is ramping up for the last couple of years. The guitar business kept rolling along.
Okay.
So those things kept rolling and fed me while I was partying.
Yeah.
I sobered up and decided to put some energy again in the supplement business a few years ago, 5-6 years ago. So that's why it's the best place it's ever been. And yeah, again, I partnered up with Dawson, and then the pay for performance stuff started. It was kind of organic, and people were asking me to help them out. just through word of mouth, people have been contacting me. So right now I've got a lot of great deals that I'm working on clients. And again, it's my superpower. So as you evolve and you do a lot of things, you get clear what your superpowers are. Like what's your real strengths? What's the things that you're really, really good at that generate a lot of value for people and that's rare? If you got that combination, then you're going to make a lot of money. So I can make thousands of dollars an hour doing this because I generate tens of thousands of dollars an hour. And that's a really key point, right? So this is the Millionaire podcast. And if you want to make millions, you need to generate tens of millions. It sounds basic, but people don't get it. And I'm going to use an example in another industry, right? So I'm a huge UFC fan on Ultimate Fighting Championship. So in that industry, a lot of fighters are complaining that they're not getting paid enough, but they don't understand the basic economic law, which is if you generate money, then you deserve a slice of that. That's a law. And it's simple. So a lot of fighters, they might be really skilled, they might be highly ranked, but they don't sell pay-per-views. So at the end of the day, they're not paid on their skill sets. They're paid on how much money they can generate for the UFC, right? Because the UFC makes a lot of money with the pay-per-views. So, Conor McGregor makes tens of millions a fight because he generates, 100 million. So he gets that 10% or whatever it is ends up being, which is the way it all goes. Again, you sell real estate. If you're selling real estate, whatever the deal is, 3 to 5%. So if you want to make millions in real estate, you got to sell tens of millions of dollars of real estate. So that's a really core truth that you need to embrace. We're not owed anything. We don't deserve anything. We get what we earn, and we get a slice of the pie that we end up generating. So in the pay for performance stuff, I typically set it up where I get 25% of the increased net margin that I generate until I get $1 million, then I'm done. That's the deal. So for an example, and it's all measured because we're doing split tests. So let's say you have a funnel for your products or your business. And right now, on average, every person that comes to your website is generating $1. So if I can take it from $1 to $2, then I would get 25 cents for every visitor that hits your website until I make $1 million. So it's great because most people don't optimize. They don't care. They'd rather build something new. And I get it. I get the mindset. But for me, what I love is to make things better. So usually I come in and I take the assets that are working and I make them work better. So they're making a lot more money. They're making $3 extra for every dollar that I generate short term. And then once I'm paid out, they keep making the money. So yeah, it's worked out really well. And again, people are really happy with that deal. I've received zero blowback from that deal. Now, a lot of people that do what I do, there's not that many people that do what I do, but those that do, they'll charge monthly fees, which to me, again, it goes back to my original mindset 15 years ago. Why am I going to charge fees when I can get a piece of the action? Again, going back to that truth that I understood, if I get a piece of the action and I can generate the action, then I'm going to make way more money.
Mm-hmm. So that's mainly what you're focused on right now, it sounds like, is the funnels and optimizing other companies?
Yeah.
Okay, putting these type of deals together.
It's taken off. I still have my 4 other things.
Right.
So I've learned how to build companies and work on the business exclusively instead of working in the business. Mm-hmm. So like 70-80% of the time I'm working on those businesses, which is very different than working in those businesses. That took a long time to figure out and to evolve into that.
When you're setting up these funnels and everything, and you're talking about the pay that you're getting per, site visit, et cetera, are you setting that all up to make sure you get paid? Or have you had any like horror stories where, you did set it up and you didn't get paid and you're like, because it makes sense wanting to get in a piece of action, but if you don't control the money, like I said, have you had anyone screw you on it?
There's somebody that's owed me money for a long time. They paid me about half of it so far. Mm. Yeah, the big thing when you're doing those types of deals is you have to be extremely selective.
Right.
I say yes to about 1 or 2 people out of 10 that want to work with me. A lot of deals, they're too small. I'm not interested in the products. I don't trust the person. I don't think that the industry is that interesting. So those are the kind of things that will make me say no. Now, if I like the person, I like the product, I like the industry, and they're generating enough money. See, I don't build funnels. There's a big difference. I take funnels that are working and make them work better. There's a lot of people that build funnels and that's cool, but that's not what my ultimate passion is. I'd rather take something that's already built and just, tighten up the screws and make it work better and then generate more money. So that's what I do.
And so, I mean, when we're talking about funnels, are we just talking about online click funnels, for example? Is that someone already has something set up like that and then you're coming on there and optimizing it? Or I just want to make sure I'm not narrowed down and thinking of one thing and making sure I understand the whole concept.
Yeah, I apologize if anybody's listening and they're confused about the words. But yeah, a funnel is a sales process where somebody comes in and it's engineered to sell a product. So, let's say you're selling an ebook on how to sell commercial real estate. Mm-hmm. So that whole funnel might start with a landing page, a capture page, opt-in page. They enter their name, their email. Then there might be a thank you page. Then there might be a sales letter selling the product. Then there's the order page. Then there's the upsell pages. Then there's the autoresponder sequence that follows up after they opt in. That whole thing is the funnel. Mm-hmm. And it's designed to usually sell one product. Sometimes 2 or 3, but typically 1.
So I just need to set up an ebook and then I give you a ring?
Set up an ebook, get it rocking, and then give me a ring.
Yeah. So now that we kind of see what you're mainly focused on now, what's a typical day or work week or anything look like for you?
Another mindset, another thing that I found to be a truth, and I call it reaching the boiling point, right? So water only starts to boil at 100 degrees using Celsius. So at 99 degrees Celsius, the water's not boiling yet. We don't have steam. Soon as it hits 100, we got steam. So to go to another level, and there's levels as entrepreneurs, right? Like, let's just kind of capture that. So level 1 is you're starting out, you don't have a lot of money. Then let's say, the second level is you're making $100,000 a year. Like they say for happiness, 75 grand a year is where your life changes. So that's like $5,000 a month, $6,000 a month. Then you start making, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. That's the next level. Then it's millions, right? But there's levels past that. If some people want to become a billionaire, like Gary Vaynerchuk, who wants to buy the jets, he's got that mission and it's fueling constant evolution. And that's a big, big thing to understand. And so, depending on your vision of yourself is, hey, there's nothing wrong with stopping at 100 grand, right? If you want to live a good life, but not an extravagant life, then you can stop there and really optimize your life. See, I got to the point where I was doing really well and only working 20 hours a week. So that was my life like 2 years ago. And I lived that life for 3-4 years. And if you go to mattgallant.tv/3x, and we can put the link in the show notes, yeah. I give a book away. It's an 80-page book on how to triple your productivity and get way more done with 20 hours a week. And I literally detail exactly how I did that. So then about 2 years ago, I just, there's just this different type of drive that came over me to make the world a better place. So now I'm driven again, kind of like I was in my 20s, but in my 20s, it was more desperation. It was frustration. It was fear, fear of being stuck in a small town, frustrated that, I wasn't successful and desperate to just leave those circumstances. That was my drive, right? But, once I started making money and I achieved a lot of the things that I wanted to, then that drive left, right? Because there's nothing to be frustrated about. There was nothing to be fearful about. Like, in a lot of ways, I had arrived. So for quite a few years, I'm like, there was nothing driving me. So I just worked 20 hours a week and that was cool. But a couple of years ago, again, I had, you could say, some spiritual experiences that shifted things inside of me that now I'm just driven and excited and loving it. So it's more coming out of a love, if you will. And so now I'm working probably about like 40 hours a week, which again is a relatively new thing. So I take weekends off. I work Monday to Fridays. Usually I start at 9:30, and I usually end at 4. But on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, I'll work in the evenings for a couple of hours because, again, I'm trying to reach that next boiling point. So when you're launching new endeavors, again, look at that water metaphor. You got to keep adding heat until that water turns to steam. And if you're getting started, if you're just starting out, it can be really frustrating looking at the water and just saying, where's the steam, man? Because you're putting energy, you're putting effort. It's a grind. It's a struggle. You're not getting the gains. You're not getting the payoffs. But that's normal, right? Until it pops, until you hit that boiling point, it's going to be that way. And every level is like that. If you decide, okay, I'm making $100,000 a year and I want to go to $1 million a year, guess what? You're talking about a couple of levels of evolution to get there. So you might have to learn new skill sets. You probably will. You might have to learn 4 or 5 new sets. You're going to have to put energy. You're going to have to figure out and you're going to have to put some energy into it so that that next level of boiling point arrives. So that's why I'm working about 40 hours a week, which again, I went from 80 hours a week to 0 hours a week and when I was partying to 20 hours a week for about 4 or 5 years. And now I'm back to 40. And I want to stay there. To me, I love, hanging with my friends. I love traveling. I love leisure. I love chilling. I love hanging out with my wife. So, I'm not afraid to work 60, 70 hours a week for a couple of weeks, but I'm not interested in being like that all the time.
Yeah, you sound like my twin in Panama because I've experienced all that. I mean, as far as when I was grinding, starting off my own company, I was, say, 25. What got me going is basically I told the guy that I was working with, I was doing everything myself already. I was going to just go ahead and do my own thing. I basically took out all the risk, right? I'm just looking at minimizing the risk. And if I'm all doing it and making the guy money, I can do that for myself. And that's when I was kind of on that grind, doing the 60, 70 hours a week. And it's out of kind of desperation because, when you don't have any money and you just want to prove that you can do it, then you get to that comfortable point where, the last year or two, I was probably working 10, 20 hours a week just because it's not going to say automatic because it's still paying time for money, but you get those clients coming in and you kind of lose it. But now I've kind of gotten that drive back just even doing this podcasting and talking to successful people like you. So it's can definitely understand where you're coming from on that. So it's not always just about grinding 80 hours a week and just making the money. It's called Millionaire interviews, but there comes a point where it comes a life balance as well.
Here's the interesting thing. So it's not hard to make $100,000 or $150,000, $200,000 a year. I mean, if you're in the right industry and you're a hard worker and you're willing to grind, you can do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's one mindset, which I think is a great mindset to cultivate in your early days. You had that, I had that in my 20s. But to go to the next level, it's a different, the rules change because to start making multiples of that, you can't grind, it's like if you're working 60 hours a week and making 100 or 150, it's not like you can go to 120 and make 300, right?
Right.
So now you got to look at other leverage points. You got to look at systems, automation. You got to look at building teams, superstars, getting people working around their strengths, building structure and synergy. See, that's how I keep building businesses. And that's what's again, I'm probably going to launch a couple new things real soon because it's just my nature. And I'm getting better. See, I had to learn the skill sets of building teams, the skill sets of using systems. I didn't have those skill sets early on. And those are things that I've learned the last 2-3 years. And that's the key. There was this man named Harold Janine, and he ran 250 multi-million-dollar companies. And, that's one example, right? Branson, 400 companies with Virgin. So it is doable. Again, I look at these guys and I do it. And, again, part of the evolution, if you want to be a multi-millionaire, is you always want to be taking on more because it forces you to get smarter, right? I'm looking at the stuff that I've got coming down the pipeline, some new stuff, and I know that I'm going to have to evolve. So how I build teams, the people that I bring in, I just hired a new executive assistant this week. It's all about just getting help so that all I'm doing is I'm staying in my superpower zone, which is to create and to innovate, create cool products, come up with the right marketing angle, the right positioning for it, and then optimizing. If I'm in that zone with my businesses, then I can keep growing those things, assuming that I've got a great team. Right. So building teams is really the key to really going to the super wealth zone because, one man, 2 people, even 5 people, 10 people, you're going to hit some ceilings. So if you want to just keep scaling, it comes down to the teams and teams that will continue growing the business, even if you get hit by a bus tomorrow.
Come and find me, my name is Macarena. Always at the party con las chicas que están buenas. Come join me, dance with me, and all you fellas stand.
With that, we're coming to a close. I mean, I don't know if there's anything else you want to leave us. You've left us a lot of great points.
There's one more thing I want to say because this is the Millionaire podcast. So this is a mistake I made in my 20s. and even early 30s. And I pretty much blew most of the money I made. I was making a lot of money.
Literally with your infused in Panama?
Yeah, actually, I never did blow. I did just about every other drug but that. So thank God, because I probably wouldn't have been.
Right.
So, but you know what? The point is that to build wealth, there's a difference between making money and becoming wealthy. There's a lot of people that make money that are broke. There's a lot of people that make money and they're buried in debt, right? Mike Tyson made $400 million. He's bankrupt, right? 80% of NBA basketball players who make tens of millions, they're bankrupt in 10. Football players bankrupt in 5. It's about 90% after they retire. So what does that tell us? That tells us that it doesn't matter how much money we make. If we don't understand how to build wealth, it's not going to happen. So I look at it as 3 things: offense, defense, and the gap, right? So offense is how much money you're making. Defense is how much money you're saving. And 3, you got to invest that gap. So the gap is the difference between your offense and the defense, right? So if you're making $200,000 a year and you're spending, $199, then you have $1,000 to invest, not much. If you're making 200 and you're saving 100, then you got $100,000 to invest. And, I've built a lot of my wealth through investing. I've invested in real estate. I've done really well. I've invested in some other things and done really well. So that really added to my net worth. And if I didn't have gap, and again, if I had really learned that in my mid-20s, I'd have several more $1 million in net worth that I don't have now because I didn't have that gap, right? I was making money and just spending it pretty much as it was coming in. I was spending probably 95%, not all of it. But so that's a critical thing. If you want to become a millionaire, at one point retire, not be dependent on having to work and continue to generate income, you need to learn to, number one, temper your ego so that you're not blowing your cash. And I'm just going to say one thing because I know you got a lot of young listeners. The worst thing on the planet to buy is an expensive new car.
Yeah. Amen.
Please, come on. Charles Givens was a financial advisor, and I remember reading one of his books as a teenager, and he says, just never buy a new car. You say you lose 40% when you come off the lot. And that really stuck with me. So I've got a BMW X5 and an Audi A6. I bought them used. I don't buy new cars. And let's be clear, a car is a liability. It is not an asset. See, if I can spend the least amount of money on cars, it gives me more money to invest. Real estate is an asset. A car is a liability. In other words, it's costing you money. It's just going to keep costing you money every day. So when you're young, and I get it, we're all seduced by Instagram and all of that jazz. The key is to just, again, temper our egos and say, you know what? I'm going to save some money today so that in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I'll buy my dream car, used, of course, buy it 2 years old, but I'll buy my dream car with the interest of the investments that I'm going to make today. See, that's the mindset. Right? Instead of, if you got $200,000 to invest and you just blow it on a car, you're never going to get a return. If you invest that $200,000 wisely, in 10 years from now, it can be worth $500,000, right? Or $600,000. So now you got money to buy a car, plus you made more money. So that's the big one and I see a lot of people, again, they're good at making money. I was talking to a guy last week, he generates about $4 million a year. He blows $4 million a year,
yeah.
Right? So it's more commonplace than we probably talk about, especially amongst entrepreneurs, because again, our brains are hardwired for that. So I think that's my last piece of advice.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I graduated finance. I know a lot of finance guys in New York, and like I said, they're notorious for making $1 million a year and blowing $1.5 million, so
$1 million in New York doesn't go far, man.
Right. Yeah. No, understood.
You can blow that easy.
Yeah. Especially on the used car. So up there that they're doing there. So what's the best way for people to reach you if they want to say thanks?
Yeah. MattGallant.tv is my website. I've got all the social media stuff. I got a Facebook page, but yeah, I post some really good blogs. I think there's almost 80 blogs. I got a free books that I give away there. So yeah, people should just go there and get some really cool free content.
Gotcha. All right. Well, yeah, we'll leave links in the show notes, like I said. And then said, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
All right. You have a good one. Thank you. Listening to the podcast. After each episode, I ask our guest a few additional questions, such as, What's your favorite tool or program that makes your business more efficient? What business book have you learned the most from? And what's the biggest challenge still holding your company back? If you want the answers to these questions and other ones as well, then head over to our website, millionaire-interviews.com. You'll find the answers and much, much more at the bottom of each podcast episode. Thanks again for tuning in. Now go ahead and enjoy another one of our episodes. You've earned it.
People don't care who they heard of me. A woman will say